Welcome into another weekly preview here at the FFPC. I'm your host, Aidan Liquorie. Joining me as always, Dave Terp. Week 16, ready to roll. Championship rounds go on. Terp, we were saying before the show, every episode we've said it's been a weird year for
It's
fantasy. Only
crazier and
funny thing
crazier.
is Jalen Hurts is out for week 16. We were looking at the football guys. So many people in the just top 10 alone, football guys. Jalen Hurts was their only roster quarterback. Unfortunately, your main event team that we were pulling for that was looking solid. Jalen Hurts and Ryan Tannehill.
Really
Can't
thrilled
have
about
much
it.
of
I'm
this
not gonna
thing.
lie. It's been they couldn't just decide to get hurt in the same week. I mean, I think Hurts would have played if Dallas didn't blow that game against Jacksonville, but still devastating. A team that realistically probably couldn't win it or anything like that. But I think we're sitting like in the low hundreds right now. Easily would have probably been made a deeper run. Probably got up there. I mean, the team's definitely different. Have some good spots this week, but just devastating, just completely devastating.
And just the Hurts injury, and now combine that with the weather that is hitting almost the entirety of the country.
Everywhere.
Cold front, winds, rain, snow, I'm sure in some places. So it's going to be an interesting week for fantasy. You said Derrick Henry is your biggest concern. You said
Number
concern.
one by a landslide. And anybody that has Derrick Henry this week, I mean, you can't not love the spot. You've seen the last 4 games what he's done against the Texans. I said 2 weeks ago, we talked about the playoff, players that I'd want to have. He was definitely one of them. So far, he's been great. And this spot, no Ryan Tannehill against a dead Texans team. Yeah, I know they've been playing hard lately. That's all cool. But they can't stop the run. And Derrick Henry probably will touch the ball 40 times in a game they have to win. I mean, it's a spot that I am praying to everybody that I know up in the sky to try to help me and not have Derrick Henry go for 40 plus.
Yeah, but Derrick Henry obviously more than likely is going to erupt.
More
But
than likely, it's correct.
but the interesting point is, besides him, there's not a lot of guys who are like, oh, they're in a great boom week because whether it be weather or other factors. It's an interesting week in the smack dab in the middle of these championship rounds and the chase for a million specifically. So Terp,
It could be a
let's
very, very low scoring week. If you could find that like couple players on your team, like if you had Everett Ingram last night or you had, Travis Etienne who did pretty good, Trevor Lawrence who wasn't bad at all, and Jaguars defense, if you got lucky there, like, I mean, there are some spots that maybe you can get lucky on. I like Mike Williams, personally on Monday night. It could be a good spot. But, I mean, if you can just put together 160, 170, 180 this week, somehow, you're going to be right there when it counts next week.
And as we were saying, we would kind of provide updates for those who hadn't seen it. We publicized it in the newsletter, which you guys should subscribe to on our Twitter. Current leaders of the FFP Main Event are the same dudes who won last year.
Congrats to them, man. I mean, it's still a long way to go, but Jesus Christ.
At
Just
minimum, at minimum, just the fact that they're number one after week 15 after winning is unbelievably impressive.
you just got to find a way to get in. Every year, it's the same thing. It's find a way to win your league, and these guys have done it the last 2 years. Last year, they took home the top prize, and this year, they're sitting right there again with a dangerous, dangerous team and a team that has the makings of winning it all again. And if that does happen, you will never find a better accomplishment in fantasy football history ever than back-to-back winners of a main event.
Yeah, their current team's still looking pretty solid. They have Mahomes, Ramondre, Raheem Mostert, Jerick McKinnon, and then their receivers CeeDee Lamb, Devontae Smith, obviously Travis Kelce. They have with the Mahomes stack. I think I mentioned Ramondre Stevenson in the flex vision, and then off to a tough start this week. They did have Zay Jones, but boosted them more than enough last week. Put them in position. So I think it's not just a chase for a million. It's almost a little added layer to the FFP main
I
event.
mean,
Have these guys go back to back.
back to back and have a chance with 2 weeks to play with a team that's a lot of great parts to it. Kansas City fighting for the number one overall seed, so they're not sitting anybody.
Nope.
I mean, the spot it's what dreams are made of. So, wishing the best to those guys, because that would be an accomplishment of accomplishments.
Accomplishment of a lifetime. But Terp, let's get into it. This week, who are you fading? Friends don't let friends start. Just a player that you think is going to underperform this week.
I said last week on the show that my pick for play of the day would come back and bite me, probably. I was very confident, and I thought Alvin Kamara would be a smash spot against a very, very suspect Atlanta team. For whatever reason, the coaching staff hates him. Taysom Hill. We can go down the list of all his stuff. You would think this week in a game that's probably the worst out of all the weather against one of the worst run defenses, it would be an Alvin Kamara spot. Then you're hearing these rumblings today if it's going to be just Taysom Hill and just handing the ball, and Kamara's going to get his carries, but it's not going to be anything close to what Hill's going to do in that offense. So my guy that I'm not starting is Alvin Kamara. I think it's time to just officially put that in the L column and then just move on, because the coaching staff, I just don't understand. David Johnson getting touches. I mean, guys I've never heard of getting touches. He barely is using the passing game, which is his strength. It just makes no sense.
Yeah, we've talked kind of extensively, I'd say, the last couple of weeks on this show about our excitement for 2023 drafts already. Alvin Kamara is going to be an interesting case study with not only how he closed this year with a possible impending court case, legal status, suspension. Really wonder where he's going to go. It's just after that great stretch in the middle of the season, it's just
since that Raiders game, he's been terrible. Terrible.
Terp, I'm going to stay in the same game for mine. Amari Cooper. Maybe not a little easier one to pick here, but Amari Cooper, since not only discounting the weather, which conditions are expected to be single digits, windy, possible rain, just absolutely brutal conditions for
it'll be a slot fest, an absolute slot fest.
Put that aside. Since Watson came back against the Texans, he's gone 4 for 58, 2 for 42, and 4 for 40. It really sucks because he was
stinks. Chubb stinks. Chubb stinks. Hunt is useless. Peoples-Jones, he scored a touchdown last week, but he's not doing anything. Njoku, useless. Cooper, useless. Like, I don't know. Bring me back to Jacoby Brissett for final 2 weeks.
It's fascinating how that offense looked great with Brissett. Cooper was one of the better values from drafts this year until Watson came back, and it's just kind of all circled down the drain. So I'm staying away from Amari Cooper.
If they continue to play the way they are the rest of the season, I'm really curious to see, like, where do Browns players go next year? Chubb was top 3 fantasy running back forever, and he's been nothing the last couple weeks. Kareem Hunt will be on a new team, but Amari Cooper, Peoples-Jones, Njoku, if people knew that Deshaun Watson was going to be Deshaun Watson, they would be going a lot higher. But where do they go if what you're seeing now is what you're going to get?
Yeah, and I'd imagine that maybe people say, oh, he's rusty, almost 2 years plus off of football and just full off season rapport that he can build. He'll return to form, but major unknowns from there.
Massive unknown.
It just, like, again, we saw what they can do with Jacoby Brissett. Amari Cooper, talent was there. Just it goes back to just when he was cut by the Cowboys, no one knew what to expect. He was going 7th, 8th, 9th round sometimes, and then he was a great value. Reminded people like Amari Cooper's a legit receiver in this league. It's just a weird spot.
People thought when he came back with Watson, he'd be a league winner, and he's been anything terrible.
If I had to guess, knowing it, I think that some of the early off-season reports are going to be big.
Huge.
And obviously, those we talked about as we as a fans community buy into them way too much.
Yeah.
Who knows? But if you're hearing like, oh, Watson struggled then, but like looks great. He's saying, I feel like I'm back. Then I think those stocks are going to go up a bit for the whole offense. Might amount to nothing, but I'd like to imagine that the fantasy community will be a little more positive in their expectations and just chalk up the struggles to him just really struggling after 2 years off. That's just a prediction on where I think his value will be, but those early offseason reports are going to be the big one.
Real quick before we move on to the next one, you're talking about like preseason puff pieces and all this stuff.
That's exactly
usually like there's guys that fall off the face of the earth after preseason. But has anybody in recent memory fallen off the face of the earth quicker than preseason hype monster Albert O? I was on him. Everybody was on him. But I don't know about you. I don't think he's sniffed the field since week 1. I haven't seen him out there. They run 87 tight ends, and it's never him. I don't know where he is. Is he playing football? Is he in the CFL? Is he coaching college? Where is he?
I don't know what exactly the deal is, but I know he was a couple of essentially healthy scratches a couple of weeks.
I mean, somebody's going to have to explain that to me one day. I'm not saying, the rookie, Dulcich isn't a solid player, because he is. He's going to be good, but that team's a disaster. But Andrew Becht, Eric Tomlinson, You cannot tell me that Albert O doesn't deserve to be on the field over those two stiffs. And
I was actually
especially
going
now,
back.
they stink. Give him a chance. What
I
are
was
you
going
holding
back and
up? He's a
looking.
23-year-old, 24-year-old kid.
I was looking back on like our all preseason hype team. Receivers were a bit, but overall, like some of the preseason hype largely weren't like Pacheco amounted to something,
Mm-hmm.
which is more than some like the
Brees Hall was
the
on his way.
the people were hating, right? Damian Pierce delivered.
Yeah.
Um, I, Trey Lance was the quarterback you and me deemed. He got hurt.
Hurt. What did he look like before then? You don't know because that slop fest doesn't count.
Yeah. So, but like it was interesting. But yeah, Alberto is interesting. Yeah, but back to like what you're saying. Yeah, the Puff Bees. I'm talking about like those first off-season training
Of
camps, and you're
course.
going to hear. I'm sure for people who want the Browns offseason, because it's going to be like, oh, Watson feels or looks as though he's
They've been
back.
working out all off season type of
Yeah,
thing.
that type of stuff, and I'm sure that is what the reports are going to be. And if he has a quote like, "Oh, obviously I was slow last year, like you're just returning to form, like I feel like I'm back," it's going to explode. Because Deshaun Watson, I just have a hard time believing, purely from a football standpoint, he was one of the better quarterbacks in the league in Houston,
Top
and
five
granted
in
he
some
sat
people's
out for a
eyes.
while. That I can't imagine they just lost that ability. So
I don't know. Maybe it was just it doesn't look good. I'll tell you that.
does not look good at all. Terp, 2 touchdown guarantee this week. Obviously, I don't know what you're doing, but Derrick Henry should be banned because he's way too easy to handle.
I'm definitely not going Derrick Henry because I don't want him to score 2 touchdowns. I want him to rush for 57 yards and just relax the rest of the game. Like just you don't need to just worry about next week because you should beat the Texans without Derrick Henry. My 2 touchdown guarantee. A guy who was quiet last week but has been just lighting up fantasy football the last couple of weeks. Didn't have the best game flow on Monday night. Christian Watson, I feel like it's in a smash spot in a game that's probably going to be the highest scoring game of the weekend, in my opinion, against, two defenses, very, very suspect. Christian Watson, 2 touchdowns. I feel like he has one of his nuclear games, 30-plus fantasy points.
I love running it back with players that I've already picked previously in the past 16 weeks. I'm going with DK Metcalf for my 2 touchdown guarantey.
I like it.
Playing a bottom five defense against receivers fantasy wise in Kansas City. He's just Geno's favorite receiver. The Seahawks, obviously, we talked about their surprising offense, and it goes back to I do find that again the Chiefs have struggled. I do think the Chiefs lead the game. I think Seahawks, especially if Walker's out, will be throwing more. Walker hasn't practiced. His status is unknown. If he is out, they're not running the ball with Travis Homer or DJ Dallas. I highly doubt that. I think it's a big DK game. He had 2 touchdowns prior to He's had, excuse me, in the last 3 weeks, he's had a touchdown in each game except for one of them. Obviously, last week he was a little bit slower, playing a great defense in San Francisco. I think this is a DK boom week, so I'm going to go DK for my 2 touchdowns. Terp, you almost forgot. Name a player that you think people aren't talking about enough.
This is a guy who's kind of been under the radar for a while. He hasn't really set the fantasy world on fire. I think he had one spike game, but pretty much has been a 8, 9, 7, 10-point guy.
Mm-hmm.
But I think just in a immaculate spot this week against a very, very suspect Vikings defense. Darius Slayton, I feel like will catch at least 1 touchdown this week from Daniel Jones. And I feel like that game is another game that's in a good spot scoring wise. Against you saw exactly what, the Colts, they moved the ball a little bit early on. And we've seen in the past with the Lions lighting up that secondary and so on and so on. Teams have not had any issues with the Viking secondary. I expect Darius Slayton, let's say 6 for 80 and a touchdown.
Yeah, my pick was a little bit better prior to some of the news breaking. Now, you actually have already mentioned him. Taysom Hill obviously had the big, like almost 40-point week early in the season. He's had his moments, but
we want to know.
Last 4 games, he's had 6+ carries in each, and now reports are trickling out today that with the weather, they're just going to pound the ball. It's going to be run heavy, and he's just going to get a ton of work. I think this is going to become no one's really forgetting about him after these reports, but Taysom Hill is slowly becoming a smash start, as you said. If you have him, you're probably going to have to be starting him this week.
For those who like props and like betting props, Taysom Hill plus 2,300 to score 2 touchdowns. I don't know, plus 300 to score 1 as of right now. I would get it. as quick as you can because it's going to change. It's going to get lower. And if there's a 3-touchdown one out there somewhere, which I don't see it so far looking, take that too.
Yeah. That is an intriguing prospect. I mean, if the reports are true, he's going to go off. It's just a matter of is that game
Because he
script going
scored
to come
touchdowns.
through?
I mean, that's
Yeah.
I think he's very set up for a very solid fantasy game.
I mean, no Olave, no Landry. He could even be involved in the passing game somewhat. I know it's obviously the weather's not great, but like
Yeah,
not
you
just
saw
running
last
the ball.
week. I mean, he threw a touchdown to Shaheed.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Taysom Hill this week. So,
I
I mean,
agree.
you almost forgot he could very well just be also like a play of the week the way I'm talking about him.
Yep.
Speaking of play of the week, Terp, give me your play of the week.
We talked about this before the show.
Mm.
Everybody all week, now that Jalen Hurts is not playing, has said Dallas is going to blow the doors off the Philadelphia Eagles tomorrow. Let me make one thing clear. The Dallas Cowboys stink. Every year, every single year. You can cut this piece if you want, save it for later. Maybe it comes back and bite me, but I don't think it will. Every single year, all the media and all the hype monsters on Twitter tell me that Dallas Cowboys are going to win the Super Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys aren't winning shit. Every year, Dak Prescott's taking the next step. Every year, Dak Prescott lets you down. I don't want to hear anything about the Dallas Cowboys. That defense last week, 27-10, they were leading. All they had to do is get a couple stops, game's over. Get a stop at the end of the game before the Jags scored that touchdown or got that field goal. Did they do that? No. Dallas will lose tomorrow. My play of the week, 3 touchdowns, 300 yards. Minshew Mania will run wild tomorrow in Jerry's house and silence all those idiots. The Philadelphia Eagles will beat the Dallas Cowboys, led by my play of the week, Gardner Minshew, and Minshew Mania tomorrow.
You know what's a little bit annoying?
You agree?
I want to surprise you. My play of the week, as my friend Steve has christened him, how the Minch stole Christmas. Gardner Minshew. The stats: 22 touchdowns to 3 interceptions is his career road like touchdown to interception ratio, which is nutty. The dude is probably he is a top 32 quarterback in this league.
He is.
That's top end. Probably the best backup there is. He's confident and he has a ton of weapons. AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert. I do think they probably run the ball a lot. I think all 3 running backs are going to get work, but Gardner Minshew is going to have himself a game. I think that's going to be a very good game. I don't know if I'm going to go on the record if Philly's going to win the game because I don't know if I necessarily want Philly to win the game, but it's not going to be a blowout by any means. I think Minshew's going to keep them in it. And as we were talking about the show, unfortunately, for anyone who had Hurts and maybe that last week we did pick up Minshew, just like, just in case, $1, they're going to be in a good spot. I'm also
they're going to be in a great spot because even worst case scenario, if Dallas goes out there and just puts a hurting on them, Minshew's going to be chucking the ball around.
Yeah.
So he's going to get his touchdowns. He's going to get his yards. It might not be pretty, but that game's not going to be a blowout. Mm-hmm. So I can see a very, very high-scoring game, 31-28 Eagles, something like that. And Minshew Mania will run wild tomorrow and make everybody's Christmas, especially those fraud Dallas Cowboy fans, extra miserable.
I do think there is something to be said. He's playing for Mike Leach, like his coach who gave him the chance.
I like a good narrative. Love a good narrative.
Everyone loves a good narrative. Rest in peace, Mike Leach, a true legend of the game.
What a legend! Absolutely,
absolute legend. But no, I think there's now his quarterbacks is getting a chance at Dallas rivalry. Just great personality.
He's not going to be scared of the moment. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely not. Minshew Mania is
running wild tomorrow, baby,
for sure. So that's going to do it for us. That's a little 20-minute show. Terp, I'm rooting for Gardner Minshew. I don't know if I'm rooting for the Eagles. I am rooting for him. Good luck to everyone who is in their various contests, especially the main event. Football guys, Chase for $1 million is on. Best of luck to all. Please like and subscribe. Terp will be back probably for one last show, week 17. I don't know.
Definitely. We'll probably be back for another one after that for the playoff challenge.
Playoff challenge, we'll have a show, but we'll be back next week. We'll see you guys then. As I've already said, good luck to all your teams.
Have a great holiday.
Happy holidays. How could I forget that? Happy holidays to all.